In this lesson, we'll implement the ability to toggle between displaying a list of bookmarks and grid of bookmarks on the bookmarks page. Before we proceed, let's clean up our bookmark grid item widget file by removing unused imports and declaring the bookmark as final. Next, to implement this ability to toggle, first, we would need a variable that would be responsible for changing the state of the list from grid to list or list to grid. Let's call this variable isGridMode and initially set it to false, as we would be displaying the bookmarks in the list mode initially. Next, we need a button which, when pressed, would allow the user to switch from list to grid or grid to list. Let's use the app bar for this and place a button at the end of the app bar using its actions parameter. Let's use the icon button widget for this, as it would give us the on pressed attribute as well. Let's use a star white icon for now. We'll change this later. In the onPressed function, all we need to do is change the value of isGridMode to true if it is false, or change it to false if it is true. We can use the not operator for this. Now, on the basis of the value of the variable isGridMode, we can choose which icon to show. Let's assume the white icon represents the grid mode and the black icon represents the list mode. Once this is done, if we press the icon button on the app bar, we don't see any change in the icon. That's because we did not wrap the statement responsible for changing the state in the setState method. Let's do that now. On hot reloading, we observe that the icon changes from white to black or black to white depending on the value for isGridMode. Let's change the icons to better represent a list and a grid. Note that even though just reading this statement would feel like we are using the wrong icons, but think about this from a UI perspective. We would want to show the list icon when isGridMode is true, so that the user can see that pressing this icon would change the layout to a list instead. Hence, we would show a grid icon on the app bar when we are actually displaying a list, which means when isGridMode is false. So far, we are only changing the icon on the basis of the value of isGridMode. The final step to complete this implementation is to change the body on the basis of this variable as well. If isGridMode is true, use the BookmarksGridWidget, else use the BookmarksListWidget. This completes our implementation of toggling between a list and a grid of bookmarks. To test if we are initially in list mode, since isGridMode is false by default, let's hot restart our app. On hot restarting, the icon at the top confirms that we are in list mode. This confirms our logic works well. But we also observe that our list of bookmarks is gone on hot restarting the app. This is because we always start with an empty bookmarks list and we never really persist the added items using a database. They only remain in the memory for the current session of the app. As soon as we close the app, they are all gone. Moreover, when we close the app, Flutter deattaches itself from the process and hence it no longer holds the state of the app on the emulator. The state of our app goes back to the last time we ran a full restart. Hence, we do not see the grid icon on the app bar as well. So whenever we kill and relaunch our app, we have to go for a full restart to get it back in development mode, which would allow us to use hot reload and hot restart. A link for data persistence in Flutter can be found in the lesson notes.